Hi, this is James, and I'd like to welcome you to the Oracle Outlook for the week starting June the 5th, 2017. This week I'm going to be doing a Lenormand card reading, and it comes as a response to a request from one of my viewers. Her name is Lightflower, so Lightflower, if you're watching this video, hello, this is for you. Lightflower asked me when she looked at last week's Oracle Outlook, which was also a Lenormand reading, if I would be willing to make more of them. And so it just so happens I'm very immersed in Lenormand these days because I'm also filming a 6-part video series. And as I'm shooting this, I have just filmed part 4 of that series where I'm sharing my Lenormand card meaning. So it just seems like this is the time for Lenormand. So I'm just going to be sticking with that since I'm on a roll. So the deck that's going to be assisting me for this week's reading is the Unforgettable Lenormand. It is by Teri Smith of Divine Walks, and so I will put a link in the description box below for more information about the deck. And if it strikes your fancy, you may want to think about getting a copy for yourself and adding it to your collection. So once again, the deck is the Unforgettable Lenormand by Teri Smith of Divine Walks. So I have the deck on hand. And as I do for all of my weekly general readings, I'm shuffling the cards, and as I shuffle the cards, my question or my intention is, what do we need to know for the week ahead? That's a sign when it acts like it doesn't want to go back together, that we're done. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the cards. And fan them out. And when I do Lenormand readings for the Oracle Outlook, I look for 5 cards. I always do a line of 5. So I'm just looking for 5 cards in the fan that get my attention. And these will be making up the 5 cards for our reading for the week. And so now I'm picking up the remainder of the deck and putting that to one side. So now I have the 5 cards face down in front of me. And when I do these line of 5 readings, I always look to the middle card first. For me, the middle card represents the central issue or the focus for the week. So here we have, the whip, or the whip and the broom. So for me, I immediately think of things like conflict or strife. So forms that could show up is that this could be a week where we're focusing on our anger, the things that get us angry, because I tend to look in terms of emotions, anger attached to this card. So you want to be mindful of things like heated words being exchanged, arguments, fights, debating with people about things. This is the week, and given the climate that we're in, this is the week possibly where we're going to be dealing with conversations about very hot button issues or hot topics. I tend to look at that with this card, and so with those issues, they can naturally escalate from heated words being exchanged to an argument. And if we're not careful, for some people, they could become physical. This card for me can represent fights and things of a physical nature. So there's that. But I'm going to, downplay it or downgrade it to, just being mindful of the things that get us angry. For me, my slang for when I'm angry is like I'm hot. So the things that make us hot this week, and focusing on how can we manage those. In relation to that, this card can come up when we are trying to sort things out or work through something, going with that. This card could be where we're having to really exercise a lot of discipline. I tend to look at this as I'm dating myself. If you watch my videos long enough to know, that I sometimes hear musical references, and some of them are quite dated. But I'm hearing a song by an artist. Her name is Laura Branigan, called Self-Control. So I'm hearing that playing in my head. So this may be a week where we're going to have to exercise. That's another aspect of whip and broom for me. Exercise a lot of self-control. So those are some aspects of whip for me. Again, I think it's just about dealing with conflict and strife in the form of heated words, arguments, debating about something. It could be like the front and center issue for the week could be a hot button or a hot topic, kind of issue, and having to work through and sort through that. But at the same point in time, about exercising some sense of discipline or self-control. So of course, now we have to look at the surrounding cards for more information about that. So let's take a look at those now. Starting with the far left, we have Stork. Then in between Stork and Whip, we have House. Very interesting. Okay. On the other side, close to Whip, we have Heart. And that's funny because as I was going through the deck looking at it, I had a feeling Heart was going to show up. And, oh, here's another, okay. And then on the other end, rounding out the line, we have Book. Okay, one of my favorite cards. Okay, so now what I do is I tend to look at the cards that are immediately flanking the center card for more information. So on the immediate left, we have House. So House, and this makes sense, given with the idea of possible conflict and strife with Whip, is that House can represent your home life, your personal life can represent an actual house. So I tend to look at this as things that are close to home. Could be a family-related issue, a personal issue that we're trying to work through or sort through or work out, going with those aspects of Whip, right? So there's that. If it's not, a direct family connection, it's anybody that we share living space with when I think of house. So you might not live with family, you may have roommates or other people that you live with. So it could be like an issue that pertains to something having to do with people that you share living space with, right? So there's that. Now, going with Whip, being a card about working through things and sorting through things out, I'm looking at the actual broom on the card because the broom is the item that's closest to house. So this could be a week where we're doing a lot of house cleaning or cleaning house, and that would be going with the idea of working through things and sorting things out. It could be like we're working on getting our house in order. But if there is some sort of conflict or strife that we're dealing with, it may be a home issue or it may be a family-related issue. So there's house on that side. Now, going to the card on the other side, we have Heart. So now, this card, Heart, can represent things having to do with love and romance. So it could be going with House being on the other side and they're mirroring each other as a pair. It could be like, a romance or a love relationship with someone we live with. So this could be partner, spouse, that kind of energy, right? So there's that. It could also be too like going with the idea like about anger. It could be about like dealing with feelings, our anger, our emotions with someone that we live with or with our personal life, things of that nature. So I'm seeing that with Heart as possibilities. Again, I think with Heart and Whip, it's about like sorting through our emotions, navigating through our emotions, kind of similar to what I said last week about the woman. You remember Lady was the focus of that reading last week, about her navigating through emotional waters. It could be for that particular person or whoever resonated with that video last week. We're still doing some more of that. We're still processing something having to do with our feelings, and it could be like either our own family-related issues, dealing with family, dealing with people we live with, dealing with ourselves. House in that regard can also be about like what is it that we are becoming comfortable with. I tend to look at house as a physical representation of our own physical house. If you start with your physical body is the house that your spirit lives in, right? So it could be like, what are you doing to make yourself feel more at home with yourself, more comfortable with yourself, more at ease with yourself? And with Whip, it could be like part of the feelings is like maybe if you've been beating yourself up about something connected with your own physical well-being or something having to do with your home life or family life, this card is asking us to kind of work through those issues. Like, what do you get out of beating yourself up? Who does that serve? Right? And you're getting a chance to look at that. Right? As I'm looking at the image, this is not a Lenormand thing, I'm looking at the image on Heart, and we have a skeletal system with the organ, the heart in it. So it's making me feel like, stripping something down. We're getting right down to the bare bones about a situation. We're stripping it away, and we're seeing what it really is. So it could be like, maybe just peeling something away and taking a really good look, a good examination about what's really going on underneath the surface. Whatever the anger is, sometimes we get into arguments with people that we are close to, and it's really not about the issue that we think we're arguing about. First thing that comes to my mind is money. When we're having a argument about money, it's really not about the money. If we're having an argument about the relationship, there's some emotional undercurrent that is coming to the surface. So when you're having heated words with people, if you can, you might not be able to do it in the moment, because I'm a big believer in honoring how you feel in the moment. But at some point, you may want to step back and say, what's really going on here? Is it really about the thing that we're arguing about, or is there something else going on that is coming up, and it's coming up through this particular subject or topic? So there's that. Now, and this is in light of what the card is on the far left. And so now we're moving to Stork, right? Stork for me is a card that represents change and improvement. So since it's very close to the house card, it could be like changes having to do with home, having to do with family. If you're going with the idea about the house being your physical body, it could be like changes that you're trying to do to improve your physical well-being. That kind of thing. What are you trying to change? What are you trying to improve? What are you trying to make better? It could also be, if we're going to be real literal here, Lenormand is really good for literal things. The Stork card is a card that can represent a move or a relocation. And it could be like, if that's the case, then maybe we're actually working on clearing out the house, getting the house cleaned up as part of that process. Right? So I'm seeing that. With Stork, it's about like, this is a week where we're entering in and we're taking a look at what's going on and saying, how can we change things? How can we improve things? So I'm seeing that. And the other thing that strikes me here, in the moment, I'm looking at the playing card inserts, and we have 4 face cards. So this isn't a week where we may be looking at the way we're relating to other people, because there's 4 people cards on the table, and 3 of them are from the same suit. 3 of them are from Hearts. So we have the Queen of Hearts with Stork, we have the King of Hearts with House, and we have the Jack of Hearts with Heart. Right? So that represents a family. We have a royal family here with 1 additional person. So it could be like, maybe this is really, we're taking a look at something having to do with family, because we have all the players from the royal card of the same suit on the table. And Hearts is a suit that represents home and family, domestic type issues, right? So there's that. Just reinforcing this idea about things being close to home that we're working on, right? So rounding out the line, we have Book. So now Book is a card that can represent knowledge, it could represent learning, it could represent an actual book. For me, keeping it relative, for me as a reader, I tend to look at this as doing a reading. So it could be, for me, if I was to look at this and make it relative to me, house would be, working from home. I have a home business, I work from home. So it could be, with Stork, it could be, how can I work on improving my existing home business, and maybe improving upon, or maybe changing to some degree, the readings that I do, or the readings that I offer, or something of that nature. Now, I've had lots of people, keeping it relative, and I mentioned the video series that I've been doing on Lenormand, then this card could suggest too, like, what changes or what improvements can I make in that regard? Because Book is also a card of education, it's also a card of teaching, it's a card of a project, so there could be some changes with an existing project, or a change that a change that happens and it results in a new project being created. And that would make sense given Heart next to Book. For me, I'm very passionate about readings. I'm very passionate about learning about readings, learning about new decks, that whole thing. I have a lot of passion and enthusiasm for that, right? So that's just a way I would make the cards relative for me. So as I'm talking about things, keep in mind, how can you make it relative to where you're at in this place, in this right now, in this moment in time, based on what's going on in your own house? how can you make this relative to you, right? And relative, I just realized that's a play on relations and family relations and things like that. So now for me, again, with heart on next to book, it could be like a fan or somebody who's a follower or somebody who's very passionate, enthusiastic about learning more about the card. So for me, that would be one thing for me. And then I would have to get things in order with whip being in the middle. How would I go about doing that? Well, this is the week for me maybe to think about that, right? So, but with book at the end of the line, it could just represent, again, some knowledge being gained. You know, if we're going through this situation, it could be about knowledge being gained, something being learned. So as we're navigating our emotions, as we're looking at our home lives, our family lives, how we're connecting and relating to people, are there things we need to clean up in certain relationships? You know, and are we willing to sort through that? Are we willing to do the work attached to that? If we are, or even if we're not, whatever choices we make with that, book is saying there's something that is meant to be learned going through the experience. So what would you be willing to learn this week? And on that note, I'll end and wrap up this week's Oracle Outlook. I'm Jameson Mitchell, and as I close, I'd like to thank you for sharing space here with me for this week's reading, and I look forward to sharing the same space with you again in our next video reading together. So until then, I'm hoping that you have a wonderful day, and I'm hoping that you have a wonderful week full of knowledge. Take care.